Yes, today we're going to be talking about money and financial goals to consider in your 30s or at least before 30 so you can actually get the gains that you need to get. Now, if you don't know who I am already, my name is Michael Tabirade, coach and mentor, and I help self-starters and ambitious professional millennials improve their productivity, enhance their performance, and live their life on purpose. Now, if this is the first time you see my channel, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can see more videos like this. Now, all of the links are in the description below, so let's get to it. Now, I want to make this abundantly clear. I am not in any way a financial advisor. Everything that I'm going to be talking about is based on my experiences and things that I have done myself. And I have definitely gone through things. I'm telling you, I've gone through things, yeah, that really gets me to a point of understanding how I want to move forward in my next years. So let's get to the video and let's really get to the points because we've got a lot to cover. Now, I want to make this abundantly clear. When it comes to your finances, most of it is mental. Most of it is mental. And the other half of it is some form of expert knowledge or information. I don't know what the percentage is. Let's just use 80-20 for argument's sake. For me, to some degree, financial success comes down to these four things: habits plus planning plus goals plus expert knowledge or information, and you'll get financial success. And so if you understand that a huge chunk of this is not even related to the knowledge part, then you're at a point where you're more likely going to win. So it's very much related to your habits. If you haven't checked out my habits video, make sure you check it out. And it's very much related to planning and goal setting. Again, these are things that are very much underrepresented in our society because we want things now and we want the latest tech and we want the latest ways of doing things. So remember this formula as I'm speaking through the different points for this video. Now, the first thing is to be abundantly clear about your income and expenses. Now, there are many different ways in which you can do this. Now, back in the day, I think it was back in 2016 or 2017, I used to export my information from my bank via a CSV file, and then on Excel, I would do all these nice categories and pivot tables to understand what my habits looked like seasonally, so I knew when I was spending the most money. I knew exactly what I was spending on in terms of my pie chart that I developed, so I can say, okay, is this warranted, or can I reduce my expenses in these areas? It's very important to make sure that you're clear of your core or reoccurring and regular direct debits, okay, that you make every single month. So you should know exactly what those things are, and maybe those things are, cut up in different categories as well. In addition, you should have an idea, okay, in terms of what your fund money looks like. So if you're not sure, usually what I do is check it over many different months, or again, if you have a regular pattern, you may check it over many different years, and you can see on average what you spend. And this is how I'm able to set up many things in terms of making sure that I don't spend above my means. So know what your core sort of outgoings are, but know what your fund money is. And whatever you're left over with, you put into your savings, or you put away into a pot that you don't touch at all. Can you do that for me? Just do that for your future, okay? Just put the money away. Don't spend it on the Nando's or the Netflix. Just put it away and save it for your future. I guess the final thing to add to that is understanding what your net worth is. Now, this is an accumulation of all of your income, okay? This could be from assets and funds and business and your actual day job, minus all of your expenses from your business, from your day job, from your personal life, from all of this kind of stuff. And the difference is your net worth. And don't worry if you're negative, okay? I was negative before, and now I'm in a positive because I made sure that I had a plan that I stuck to. And it starts with understanding exactly what comes in and what goes out on scale, okay? Globally. It's really important that you make sure that you fully understand this stuff. So if you want to check out something like Money Dashboard, again, there's a link below in order for you to sign up. If you don't want to use Money Dashboard, there are many other things you can use, but use what you're comfortable with. The second thing, my brothers and sisters, is to make sure that you pay off your consumerist debt, or at least bad debt, okay? Not all debt is considered bad, and it depends on who you are. But if you're more of a Dave Ramsey person, all debt is bad apart from a mortgage, so to speak. If you're more of a Robert Kiyosaki person, then you're at a point where you're like, well, it depends how you use it. But I would say to you, focus on paying off any consumerist debt, okay? That could be on credit cards, that could be loans, that could be whatever it is that isn't native to what you should be spending, okay? If you're using credit in order to fund your activities, you need to find a way to pay that off as quickly as possible. And so the way I did this when I was in heavy debt, I created an amortization calculator that enabled me to understand exactly what I needed to pay off by when. I actually threw like £1,000 every single month to make sure that I paid off my debt completely. And it was the best decision I did. It took me a year to do it with aggression. Now, not everyone's going to be able to have the right level of means or the right level of aggression to do it, but you should take this seriously. What should you pay off first? The thing with the highest interest or with the highest amount? There are many different rules to this. You can decide. For me, I focused on what was the highest amount. But again, I didn't really have many different things to pay. And so I focused on making sure that I aggressively paid it off every single month. And I marked it down on my tracker because it made me feel happy. And so now that I don't have that debt at all, I've got more money to spend on the things that I want to spend on. And so this is really important to understand. You have to think about the future and you have to think about what you want to do going forward. And this is why a plan and goals is really important. And so in terms of developing that plan, this is why you need to know your ingoings and your outgoings. And this is why you need to understand exactly how much you need to pay off, and using tools like an amortization calculator. Again, if you want to check out my calculator, make sure you check it out below and you can see details in terms of how you can actually get it. The third thing is to make sure you have a budget, okay? Maybe you don't like that word, maybe it has a negative connotation, but you need to know what you're allowed to spend every single week, okay? For me, it's weekly, it may be monthly for you. I find that if I break it up into weeks, I feel like it's more manageable. And so like I stated before, what I was able to do is really do a deep analysis on my incomes, my expenses, and then I got to a point of understanding what I was likely to spend, but what I should spend and what I shouldn't spend. And so self-awareness is key in this. If you don't have self-awareness, you won't really know what you should be spending, okay? But you should only know what you should be spending based on what your future goals are as well. Because you want to just have a budget for budget's sake. There should be some sort of understanding of why you're having this. And so I like to make sure that my spending account is different to my bills account. So separate your bills account from your spending account. So with my spending account, it's pretty much a Monzo, okay? So every time a direct debit goes from my bills account into my spending account, which is my Monzo, and then I know exactly what I'm spending because I get those notifications that pop up every time I order something on on Amazon. So make sure that you have some sort of budget in mind and make sure it's realistic, okay? Anything that you don't spend, you can just put back into savings. Simple, okay? And obviously Monzo and all these other apps have neat features that help you create savings in order for you to, work towards your goals. You can also develop pots in your Monzo. And again, if you don't have Monzo, you can check out my link below in order for you to get started, because at the end of the day, if you don't have a budget, my friends, you're playing. You're just playing about. Get serious, have a budget, and stick to your plan. The fourth thing is to commit to paying yourself first. If you've ever read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, where they say pay yourself first, this could mean a number of different things, but I'm talking about savings here, guys, okay? We could get into this dispute about whether you should, save your money in an ISA or into some sort of index fund or ETF or, cash ISA or just a savings account. I'm not here to talk about that. Again, you want the best rates in terms of your returns each year or each month, depending on what you use. However, I'm here to say stick to the habit. Stick to the habit of saving. If you have a goal in mind, maybe your goal is just to save £1,000. Maybe you don't know exactly what it is that you need to save for, but at least save for £1,000 as a goal, okay? The next thing maybe to consider is to see, okay, do I have an emergency fund? Maybe you want to save 3 to 6 months worth of your emergency fund. If you earn £2,500, but on average, you actually spend about £1,000, then you need to make sure that you have £3,000 for 3 months, or at least £6,000 for 6 months. Again, it's all in context to what your expenses are and your habits as well. But have a goal in mind. Savings could come in the form of saving for a house. It could come in the form of saving for your kids in the future. If you actually focus on saving for your kids in the future, there is so much money that they could utilize in terms of their education and for setting them up right in life. Think about the times where you thought to yourself, oh, I wish my parents did this to me and now I have to save all these things. I don't know why I did that voice. But, you have to understand that you could prevent that from happening if you get your ish together right now. So pay yourself first and commit to saving. The fifth thing is, if you're saving for a house, make sure you utilize two main things. Number one, make sure your credit score is good. Now again, you may use ClearScore or Experian, and these aren't necessarily the benefactors that decide what your sort of application or success rate looks like in terms of applying for a mortgage as an example, but they're a good criterion to have regardless, okay? So if you don't have an Experian account, if you don't have a ClearScore account, again, you can check the links below, but make sure you actually get one so you're up to date. Sometimes your credit score is bad because your information is not up to date. I remember when Experian thought that I wasn't on the electoral roll, and I proved to them that I was, and they updated it for me. And all of a sudden, lo and behold, a month later, my score went up. And so if you use that criteria, it's really, really important to make sure that you're sticking to good financial rules and successes. In addition to that, again, if you're saving for a house, maybe you want to really utilize things like the LISA or the Help to Buy ISA. You may be too late for that now. You are too late for that now if you're in the UK. But again, you could use the LISA, okay, as an opportunity. But the point being made, if you don't understand any of this stuff, either research it and or save regardless, okay? So just make sure you stick to those habits. The sixth thing that I'd like to add is to make sure you step up when it comes to your career. Sometimes we forget this when it comes to money habits, but your career is going to define heavily what you can and cannot do. And so I know in this social media jungle and this millennial age and all this kind of stuff here, where we're talking about business and entrepreneurship and yeah, you got to hustle, you got to grind, you have to have 7 streams of income. Have you even got one additional stream of income yourself, my friend? Why are you rushing? Like all these people who have got these additional forms of income, these 7 streams, focused on 1 or 2 first. One of them was probably their job, and the second thing was maybe an investment in an index fund, or maybe they set up a business as an example, maybe they started with affiliate marketing. So you need to think to yourself, when it comes to my career, my actual job, don't be ashamed, okay? Again, I work for NHSX, I'm not ashamed of that. Before, I wouldn't necessarily tell people that. However, I'm climbing up the ranks slowly but surely. Okay, but it's for the benefit of myself, but for the benefit of those I'm helping in my job as well. So if you show your worth, if you know what your PDP looks like, your professional development plan, and if you actually create value in your workspace, then that's more likely going to happen. Again, if you want to check out a video, or if you want me to do a video on maybe interview skills or career development, leave a comment below and let me know so I can do that for you. So don't be fooled by this whole entrepreneurial rush that we see online. Make sure that you set yourself up in terms of a career as well. Now, some people may say that, you know, you should go all in with your business, and that may work for you, but that doesn't work for the majority. This is why a high number of people actually failed their businesses in the first year and the first 5 years as well. So if you build your financial sort of stations and get that stability in place, then you can afford what you need to when it comes to the business expenses. Then you can be a bit more flashy. Then you can improve your personal brand. Then you can do advertising and increase the number of sales inquiries that come into your business. So don't forget the actual career plan as well. That should work in liaison to what you're doing in terms of your business outside of work, because at the end of the day, if you confuse the two together, you've got a match made in heaven. You've got a specific niche. The fact that I work for the NHS, the fact that I'm a coach and mentor, the fact I'm able to do all of this stuff and lead it all together means that I have a unique, let me even say that properly, I said unique, I have a unique skill set, okay? Or I have unique experiences. And so that could be the same for you. Be bold, be brave, and actually have a career plan, or at least some sort of work towards your career so you can be effective. Sometimes it's not always about having a plan. Sometimes it's quite difficult to visualize what you want to do, but at least work towards the next step and make more money. Okay, it's really important to realize this. Consequently, the 7th thing is to make sure you start a side business. Now, I don't like saying side business, but it may start on a side initially because you want to make it your main hustle, your main thing. So starting a business is really important because, again, you get to utilize transferable skills and you get to really provide value for other people whilst making money as well. Now, have a lean approach. Make sure you fail fast and hard, but also make sure that you understand from those failings as well and that you don't get distracted. Be prepared to have some sort of minimal viable product or service that really proves that people want your stuff. Maybe you start off by, producing content online via a blog or YouTube or social media as an example. But again, the engagement, the inquiries, the questions that you get will give you an idea of whether you should continue with this path. Now, when I started talking about personal development and professional development, I really got that buzz and really got that confirmation when people started to ask me for mentoring or coaching and all of this kind of stuff. And I was a bit like, oh, I wasn't trying to do this, but since you're asking, let me explore this. And so with that exploration, I've tried all these various different stuff, but it's got me to a point where I'm building my business slowly but surely. Okay, for me, of course, I want the glam and the dreams and all this great stuff that a business can get you, but I shouldn't be deluded because it is hard work, even if you're doing it full time as well. And so bearing that in mind, remember, build your business slowly but surely, learn quickly and understand what others have done in order for you to be more effective as well. The eighth thing is to invest. Now you should only put in what you're willing to lose. Okay. Now you may be a person who's into precious metals as a way to, protect yourself as a form of insurance against the market. You may be a person who's into slow growth but steady growth like index funds or ETFs. You may want to do stocks because you're a risk taker and you want to make money now sort of thing. There are all these different things that you can do. Okay. But it's important to understand what works for you, whether it's peer-to-peer lending or something else. Now I use Trading 212 in order to invest. I don't do anything fancy. I just focus on index funds. I did invest in a little bit of silver here and there, but that's about it. I'm not doing anything crazy. For me, I'm focusing more on the index funds. And so in your mind, I want to ask you this question. Do you know how much it would take in order for you to be financially free? How long would it take? How much money would it take? Do you know how to calculate that? Because if you can calculate that, if you know what that looks like, then you have a plan. And so this is why calculating this stuff is so key, and it gives you context in terms of how much effort you need to apply in terms of your job, in terms of your business, in terms of making sure that you don't spend unnecessarily on things. If you know that you get an 8% return each year and you're investing £500 each month into an index fund, let's say a really famous one known as the S&P 500, which most people invest in, then you're at a point of knowing roughly how much you could make in the next 20, 30 or 40 years. And so understanding that is so key in terms of your strategy. So I would urge you to know what you're willing to invest in and what you're willing to lose if there was a change in the market that you're investing in. The ninth thing is to diversify, but don't be in a rush. I know everyone's saying you should diversify. You've got, all these really big billionaires saying it and all these business people saying it, X, Y, and Z. It is true, but it's important to make sure that you understand and you've mastered the foundations. It's really important for you to do that, because if you haven't mastered something but you're spreading yourself thin, even if there was a market crash, would you even benefit from it? You'd get peanuts. And so diversification logically usually makes sense, in my head at least, when you get to a point where your finances are on point. Like personal budgeting and personal finance is so important at the beginning because I guess it's underrated and not respected, but it's what will get you further ahead. And so focus on doing that well first, focus on making sure the career or the business is on point. Then you could start seeing gaps and opportunities that make sense to diversify in your portfolio, whether this is an investing portfolio, a business portfolio, or something else. Okay, so yes, 7 streams of income is great, but it means nothing if you're investing 50p into each of them. Okay, so be sensible about your level of diversification. If you're only diversifying in a few things right now, that's okay, that's not a big deal. For me right now, it's index funds and ETFs. I've obviously got my career. I've also got my coaching and mentoring business. I've got affiliate marketing as well. And I've left it at that. I haven't got anything else really. And I'm okay with that. I'm not trying to go crazy. At some point, I'm going to release, some sort of course. I suppose, I guess that's sort of the trajectory. So you have to think to yourself, what makes sense for the time? Don't just rush it, have the right level of quality and make sure it's in context to your life as well. The 10th thing is to make sure that you get the right level of insurance. Now, if you're loaded, then there's a question of whether you need insurance or not. You've got that money or capital built up in order to help you if you're ill, if you're injured, or if you've lost your job for unforeseen circumstances. But if you don't have that wad of cash, then, my friends, you're going to have to make sure that you get some sort of level of insurance. Now, within some communities, this is not necessarily a taboo, but it's not necessarily respected. But it becomes respected all of a sudden when something grave happens and you don't want to be in that position. For me personally, I've got income protection, and with that in mind, it usually costs around £20 to £25 depending on what you make. Again, it's relative to what your premiums are and everything else. So you need to have a clear understanding of what your work's policy is in terms of if you were ill or sick, how many months they would pay you for, what that looks like. Again, the NHS have a nice setup. So just really understand what that looks like so that when you do go to income protection companies, or when you're doing your search, and again, you need to make sure you check the whole market. Don't just check one marketplace. It's good to check multiple marketplaces and you get better deals. Then you can actually put something through because you're more informed and you understand what you need to do. Read up on it. Talk to a financial advisor if you need to. You can do it yourself. I've done it myself, but it's about making sure you're informed and you understand what you're actually putting your money into every single month. Because again, God forbid, if something was to happen, you're in a position where you can protect yourself every single month, at least with income protection. Obviously, you should know what your expenses are. You may want to make sure you just stick to those expenses or maybe have a little bit more. But again, that's going to affect your premiums. If it comes to critical care or critical illness, when it comes to that sort of insurance, again, you get a lump sum, and effectively that could be useful when it comes to paying off a loan or paying off a huge debt, or maybe paying for some treatment that is specialized, whatever it is. So both may be useful. Some say it's more useful when you have a family and all that kind of stuff. You need to assess it for yourself. But what I'm saying to you guys is to at least read up on this stuff, understand it for yourself, and then get some form of insurance in place if you don't have that wad of cash around. The 11th thing is to make sure that you're enrolled into some form of pension. Now, for me, I'm enrolled in the NHS pension, but it's also to make sure to see if your pension is good enough. Like, do you know what percentage comes out of your actual income when it comes to your pension? Do you know how much you get every single month or year? Do you know what you're actually investing in terms of your pension, or doesn't it work that way? Is it a different type of pension setup? So understand what your pension looks like if you are enrolled, and if you're not enrolled, then maybe enroll in your work pension. If you're not happy with that, you can do this in addition to having a work-based pension, but it's important to make sure that you have a self-invested personal pension as well. And effectively, the way I see it is, this is putting your money into some sort of account like an ISA that grows over time based on the market, but is protected over a certain amount of time until you're ready to release that money as well. And so think about a SIP, they're known as SIPs, and invest your money wisely by choosing the right sort of SIP for you. The 12th thing that I want to say is to make sure you have days for financial review. Now, if you've got a partner, if you've got friends, or you're living with somebody, maybe you want to do it with them because it both affects you, but you want to get to a point of making sure that you have a day throughout every single month or every quarter where you review your finances. At least do it every year, because this is a very good time to understand what you're doing right and what you're doing wrong and how you need to improve. So make sure you schedule in some time. If you do have a partner, with your partner, to go through your finances and your expenses to understand what your monies is looking like. Because if you don't know, if you don't have that self-awareness, how are you going to be a millionaire? Okay, maybe you don't want to be a millionaire, but how are you going to be financially independent? How are you going to be financially free? How are you going to be financially stable? How are you going to achieve the things that you want to achieve if you don't know where your money is? So have time to sit down and actually look through your finances effectively, aiming to increasing your net worth every single time when you can. Bonus tip. Now here I want to say to you guys that you have to always be on the hunt for a deal. Now, I may be completely wrong with this, but a lot of the women in my life are very good at finding me deals. Okay, not just me deals, but finding themselves deals. And so you have to get to a point of loving finding a deal, because it means you actually make those savings. Many of you guys know of Honey, the Chrome extension, which enables you to actually make savings through deals and codes and coupons in order for you to cut down on the pounds or the dollars. So make sure you have deals in mind. Even check to see if there are any benefits that your workplace offers in terms of deals. This may be gym membership, then I question, do you need a gym membership? You know, there are questions around also, you know, going out to eat, but again, you have to question to yourself, do you need to go out to eat right now? There's also things in terms of flights and insurance and phones and all this kind of stuff. Yes, these are all ways to entice you. And again, if you check your email list, or your email should be, so with all these subscriptions that you have, you'll see that deals are thrown at you all the time. So again, you don't want to always be, you know, spending on deals, because it means that your budget is getting less and less and less, or you're eating into your budget. So only spend if it's applicable or works in line with your weekly or monthly budget. But nonetheless, find a deal before you're going to buy something. You should always use this rule where if you're about to buy something, give yourself a week. I remember I wanted to get favorite chicken. This is so random. I wanted favorite chicken. I've been banging for it, or at least yearning for it for at least a month. I blasted that week out the window, so to speak. Like, I've been thinking about favorite chicken burger for at least a month. And every time I walk past it, I can't be bothered to go in because I'm remembering that I shouldn't eat the favorite chicken because it's not good for me because I'm looking a bit tubby right now. So for you have to mentally train your brain in such a way where you're either finding deals or preventing yourself from spending unnecessarily, and use the week rule at least. All this talk about plans is making me think about doing a video on how to develop a business plan for your business. So make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can check out that video. And as always, understand, reach, and expand. Peace.